What if I told you that for many people, intermittent fasting is not failing because they lack discipline, but because their metabolism is receiving the wrong signals? That sounds surprising, especially when fasting has been promoted almost like a universal solution for weight loss, energy, and longevity. And to be clear, fasting can absolutely help some people. But here's what most people never hear. More than 20 studies now suggest that intermittent fasting often performs no better than standard calorie control for long-term fat loss. And in some cases, it may even backfire when the body is already stressed, insulin resistant, sleep deprived, or hormonally imbalanced. Here's what's really going on inside your body. Your metabolism is not just a math equation, it is a communication system. Hormones like insulin, cortisol, leptin, and thyroid hormones are constantly interpreting signals from food, sleep, stress, muscle activity, and meal timing. So when someone skips breakfast, drinks coffee all morning, eats one giant meal at night, and still cannot lose weight, the real issue may not be fasting itself. It may be the metabolic environment underneath it. Most people miss this part. In today's video, we're going to break down why intermittent fasting does not work for everyone, what the research actually shows, how stress hormones can quietly block fat burning, why muscle loss matters more after age 40, and what a more effective metabolic strategy may look like instead. And before you change your breakfast routine or extend your fasting window even longer, listen carefully to the next section. Because the biggest mistake often starts with misunderstanding what fasting is actually supposed to do. So let's build this out step by step like we're standing together at a whiteboard. First, we'll look at why many fasting studies show similar weight loss results compared to simply improving food quality and calorie awareness. Second, we'll talk about the hidden stress response. Because for many adults, especially after 40 or after menopause, aggressive fasting can increase cortisol and make the body hold on to fat instead of burning it efficiently. Third, we'll break down the muscle metabolism problem. This is one of the biggest issues nobody explains. Losing weight is not always the same as improving metabolism. Fourth, we'll look at insulin sensitivity and why meal composition often matters more than simply shrinking the eating window. Fifth, we'll discuss circadian biology, the timing of food, sleep, and light exposure, and why eating late at night may disrupt metabolic health even if you are technically fasting for 16 hours. And finally, we'll go through a practical, sustainable strategy that supports fat burning, energy, hormones, and healthy aging without pushing the body into unnecessary stress. Because the goal is not to suffer your way into health. The goal is to create a metabolic environment where your body finally feels safe enough to heal, adapt, and function the way it was designed to. And the first misunderstanding begins with how most people interpret the fasting research itself. When headlines say intermittent fasting works, most people assume it must work better than traditional eating patterns. But what the research shows is far more nuanced. Several large reviews comparing intermittent fasting with standard calorie reduction found something interesting. After months of dieting, weight loss outcomes were often very similar. In other words, many people were not losing extra fat because of the fasting window itself. They were simply eating less overall. Now, that does not mean fasting is useless. It means the mechanism matters. Think of your metabolism like a hybrid car. Fasting is supposed to help your body switch from burning incoming food to burning stored fuel. But if the engine is already under stress, poor sleep, elevated cortisol, insulin resistance, nutrient deficiencies, low muscle mass, forcing longer fasting windows may not improve the switch. Sometimes it simply increases stress signals. Here's the mistake most people make. They assume longer fasting always equals better results. But the real problem starts here. Many people fast all morning, drink coffee to suppress appetite, then overeat highly processed foods late at night when stress hormones and cravings peak. That creates unstable blood sugar, poor sleep, and more hunger the next day. The body never truly becomes metabolically flexible. What the research suggests is that food quality, protein intake, muscle activity, and sleep often influence metabolic health just as much, and sometimes more, than the fasting window itself. Here's the practical way to apply this. Instead of jumping immediately into extreme fasting schedules, start by stabilizing your meals first. Build meals around protein, healthy fats, fiber, and mineral-rich foods. Walk for 10 minutes after meals. Improve sleep consistency. Then experiment with a gentle 12-hour overnight fast before extending anything further. Because once you understand the physiology, you stop blaming yourself. And you start working with your metabolism instead of against it. Now let's talk about the part many people never connect to fasting: stress physiology. Because your body does not only respond to calories, it responds to safety. Here's what's really going on inside your body. When fasting is done appropriately, insulin levels may decrease, and the body can become more efficient at using stored energy. But if the body already perceives stress, poor sleep, emotional stress, overtraining, undereating, menopause, chronic inflammation, prolonged fasting may increase cortisol output even further. Think of cortisol like a financial emergency system. In short bursts, it helps you survive. But if the alarm stays on all day, the body starts protecting resources instead of spending them. That can mean more cravings, disrupted sleep, blood sugar swings, fatigue, and stubborn belly fat. The third mistake is the one many adults over 50 make without realizing it. They fast longer and longer while simultaneously eating too little protein and losing muscle. The scale may go down temporarily, but metabolic rate often slows underneath the surface. Several studies suggest that women, particularly during perimenopause and menopause, may be more sensitive to aggressive fasting protocols because hormonal shifts already affect cortisol regulation and insulin sensitivity. So what should you do instead? Start by asking whether your body feels nourished before you ask it to become efficient. Prioritize protein early in the day, especially within the first meal. Aim for consistent sleep timing. Add resistance training 2 to 4 times weekly to preserve muscle and insulin sensitivity. And if fasting leaves you shaky, exhausted, irritable, or binge eating later at night, that is useful feedback, not failure. Let me explain this with a simple analogy. You cannot convince your body to burn fat efficiently while simultaneously sending signals that a famine is happening. If you know someone who is doing everything right but still feels stuck, share this with them, because sometimes the solution is not more restriction. Sometimes it is creating a safer metabolic environment first. One of the biggest flaws in the fasting conversation is that people focus almost entirely on body weight while ignoring body composition, and those are not the same thing. Here's what's really going on inside your body. Your muscle tissue is one of the largest regulators of glucose control, insulin sensitivity, metabolic flexibility, and healthy aging. Muscle acts like a storage tank for blood sugar. The more healthy muscle you maintain, the better your body can manage incoming energy. But when fasting becomes too aggressive, especially combined with low protein intake, the body may begin breaking down muscle tissue along with fat. Think of it like this. Imagine trying to lower your monthly expenses by selling off parts of your house. At first, the numbers improve, but eventually you have fewer resources, less resilience, and a weaker structure overall. That is what happens metabolically when rapid weight loss comes with muscle loss. Several human studies now suggest that preserving lean mass during weight loss is strongly associated with better long-term metabolic outcomes, especially in adults over 40. This matters even more after menopause, when natural muscle loss already accelerates with age. Most people miss this part because the scale rewards smaller numbers, not healthier physiology. Here's the practical shift. Instead of asking, "How long should I fast?" ask, "How do I protect my metabolism while improving fat burning?" That changes everything. Start your first meal with at least 30 to 40 grams of protein from real food sources like eggs, Greek yogurt, fish, chicken, cottage cheese, or quality protein shakes if needed. Add strength training consistently, even if it is just bodyweight movements at home. Prioritize recovery, hydration, and electrolytes. And avoid using fasting as permission to undereat all day and binge at night. What the research suggests is that metabolic health improves most when the body feels strong, nourished, and insulin sensitive, not simply deprived. Save this video so you can come back to the protocol we'll cover near the end, because the next section may explain why some people actually feel worse the longer they fast, even when they are doing everything right. Here is where many people get stuck. They treat fasting like the main lever, while ignoring what happens when they finally eat. Because your eating window is not magic, it is information. Here's what's really going on inside your body. When you break a fast with bread, sweet coffee, cereal, pastries, or a large late-night meal, glucose rises quickly. Insulin rises with it. And if your liver and muscles are already full from years of frequent snacking, stress, or inactivity, that incoming fuel has fewer places to go. Think of your muscles and liver like parking lots. When the lots are open, glucose parks easily. But when they are full, insulin has to keep circulating, trying to move that fuel somewhere. Over time, that can make fat burning feel almost impossible, even if you are fasting 16 hours. The mistake most people make is fasting longer while eating the same foods that created the metabolic problem in the first place. Here's the practical way to apply this. Break your fast with protein first, then fiber, then healthy fats, and place starches last if you include them. A simple plate could be eggs with avocado and spinach, salmon with roasted vegetables, or chicken with olive oil salad and a small serving of berries or sweet potato. Then walk for 10 minutes after eating. That simple habit helps muscles pull glucose from the bloodstream without needing as much insulin. This is not about perfection. Results vary from person to person. But for many people, improving the meal signal works better than simply stretching the fasting window. Most people think fasting is only about how long you do not eat, but your metabolism also cares deeply about when you eat. Here's what the research shows. Human metabolism follows a circadian rhythm, an internal biological clock connected to light exposure, sleep, hormones, digestion, and insulin sensitivity. In general, the body handles glucose more efficiently earlier in the day than late at night. That means two people could eat the exact same meal with the exact same calories and get very different metabolic responses depending on timing. Let me explain this with a simple analogy. Think of your metabolism like a factory. During the daytime shift, workers are alert, organized, and productive. But late at night, the factory slows down. Fewer workers are active. Cleanup processes begin. If trucks keep arriving with more fuel and materials at midnight, the system becomes inefficient and overloaded. That is exactly what happens when people fast all day, then consume most of their calories late at night while watching television or scrolling on their phones. Blood sugar regulation worsens. Sleep quality often declines. Hunger hormones become dysregulated the next day. Most people miss this part because they believe fasting automatically cancels out poor meal timing. Several studies suggest that earlier eating patterns, sometimes called early time-restricted feeding, may support insulin sensitivity, appetite regulation, and energy levels better than very late eating schedules. Here's the practical shift. Try finishing your final meal at least 2 to 3 hours before bed. Expose your eyes to morning sunlight within the first hour after waking. Keep sleep and wake times consistent. And if you drink coffee, avoid pushing caffeine too late into the afternoon, because cortisol and sleep disruption often affect hunger the next day. If this is helping you rethink your metabolism in a more practical way, consider subscribing. Because the next section may be the most important of all: what actually works long-term when intermittent fasting stops working. So if intermittent fasting is not the universal answer people hoped for, what does work long-term? The answer is metabolic consistency, not punishment, not starvation. Not chasing the longest fasting window possible. Here's what's really going on inside your body. Your metabolism responds best to stable signals repeated over time. Stable blood sugar, stable sleep, stable muscle activity, stable nourishment. When those systems improve together, the body often becomes more flexible, more insulin sensitive, and more efficient at using stored fat naturally. Think of it like tending a garden. Most people treat their metabolism like an emergency project. They slash calories for 2 weeks, fast aggressively, lose energy, then rebound into cravings and exhaustion. But healthy metabolism is usually built through repeated daily signals, not extreme short-term interventions. What the research suggests is that sustainable fat loss and healthy aging are strongly associated with habits that preserve muscle, improve insulin sensitivity, reduce chronic inflammation, and support circadian rhythm. So here is a practical protocol many people tolerate far better than aggressive fasting. Start with a 12-hour overnight fasting window instead of 16 or 18. Eat 2 or 3 balanced meals centered around protein and fiber. Walk after meals whenever possible. Strength train consistently. Prioritize sleep before chasing advanced fasting protocols. Stay hydrated and maintain electrolytes, especially if reducing carbohydrates. And if you take diabetes or blood pressure medication, talk with your doctor before making major fasting changes. Most people are not failing because they lack willpower. The real issue is that they are trying to force fat loss without first improving the environment controlling metabolism. And that brings us to the most important takeaway of this entire conversation. So when you hear someone say intermittent fasting does not work, the more accurate answer is this: fasting is a tool, not a magic solution. And like any tool, it works differently depending on the metabolic environment underneath it. Here's what we covered today. Many studies now show that intermittent fasting often performs similarly to standard calorie control for long-term weight loss. That means the real driver of metabolic health is usually not just the fasting window itself. It is the hormonal and physiological signals happening underneath the surface. We talked about cortisol and chronic stress. We talked about muscle preservation, especially after 40 and after menopause. We explored how meal composition, sleep timing, movement, and circadian rhythm often influence insulin sensitivity more than people realize. And most importantly, we reframed the conversation away from punishment and toward metabolic support. Because the real issue is not just eating less. The real issue is helping your body become metabolically flexible again. For some people, fasting may absolutely help. But for others, especially those under chronic stress, sleeping poorly, losing muscle, or struggling with hormonal changes, aggressive fasting can become another stress signal layered onto an already overwhelmed system. So here's your challenge. For the next 7 days, stop focusing on how long you can avoid food. Instead, focus on sending better metabolic signals. Prioritize protein, walk after meals, strength train a few times this week, finish eating earlier at night, protect your sleep, and pay attention to how your energy, hunger, mood, and focus respond. Let the results teach you, because sustainable health is rarely built through extremes. It is built through consistency, awareness, and understanding what your body actually needs. If this added value, like the video and subscribe to join others who are learning how to optimize their health naturally.